Hello friends, I'm Nukebrush, and today we are going to make Imperial Tank Hunter the Hollander.
Time to go nuclear.
Bad luck, evil curse, or both left hands? Call it what you will, but assembling and painting this tank cost me a lot of time and nerves. Broken parts, unsuccessful experiments with technologies and materials, numerous remakings, or rather repaintings, loss of video data, personal problem distractions, and as a result, more than a month of suffering on one project. I apologize to you, friends, for my absence and prolonged silence, and thank you for your patience. Let's finally get started with our tank. As usual, the model came to me already printed. There are many parts and many of them are removable, so I will paint them separately from the main hull. As you can see, this tank is even more futuristic than the usual models on the channel, so from the very beginning I decided to make it catchy and memorable. Let's see if it worked. When all the parts are glued with superglue or mounted on magnets, we can start priming. I prime the tank using nitro primer Mr. Surfacer 1000, which is very convenient when you need to identify printing errors, thresholds or extra holes that have to be repaired before further painting. Detected defects are sealed with liquid putty Mr. Surfacer 500. It gives minimal shrinkage, but for our models this is not critical. After light sanding, a second coat of base primer can be applied. I paint the bottom of the hull and tracks using brown paint primer brown oxide. This primer gives our tracks a universal rusty color and is convenient to apply other shades of rust over it. This is what we will do. First we will create dark old rust with brown paint, and on top of which we apply lighter spots of fresh rust with orange paint. When the paint diluted with water dries, it forms the random pattern we are looking for. Then, using the dry brush technique, we develop the metal base of our tracks. Everything is as usual. First a thoroughly dark metal paint, then with less brush pressure a brighter one. Now we can cover the tracks with masking tape and start painting the main color, but I want to show you what happens after that. So forward to the future! There are rubber parts on the tracks, which we also need to paint. I used rubber and tires dull grey color for this purpose. Then, using light grey paint, we chaotically create an imitation of weird chips of rubber. And finally, using black wash, we darken these elements. Little more rusty wash to enhance the shadows, and the tracks are ready to dirt application during the weathering stage. I chose calm moss green paint as the base color for the tank. To apply this color correctly, I first of all create shadows with the dark green paint. Highlighting the joints and creating shadows is a fairly simple process, especially if you use an airbrush. Once the shadows are done, we can unify the colors of the entire model with the moss green. After the main color, we apply highlights to the most prominent and top elements of the tank. Now we can start making markings for the tank. For this purpose, as usual, I prepared custom stencils. Check my other videos to see how I do it. It is important to carefully apply the stencil in the chosen position and cover with masking tape the remaining parts of the tank from paint or spray. The symbols will be painted white, so a grey paint will act as a nice backing in the green color. The corner markings of the tank side is two-color, red stripe on a white background, and there is nothing difficult in applying it. The main thing is to wait until the paint dries before gluing the stencil. This tank has a dozer blade, which I wanted to paint with black and yellow boundary stripes. I find it easier to paint from light to dark, so I first create a general yellow background into which I place pieces of masking tape and then apply black paint. Next we have to pick up a brush. Using base color green mixed with the lighter paint, I highlight the paneling and decorative elements of the body and removable parts. This is a simple process that requires only patience and a little accuracy. While the main colors are drying, let's start highlighting the metal parts. I wanted to make the main gun feeding tubes bright and shiny, so I applied chrome paint. This is a rather tricky paint to use, which must be applied in a fairly thick layer, so be sure it is dry completely before any further actions, unless of course you want to keep mirror effect. To maintain the brightness of chrome, it is necessary to minimize the impact of varnish, paint, pigments and other chemicals on the chrome surface. For the remaining parts of the tank I used polished metal paint. Later I will emphasize the shine of the elements with metal pigments, but now we can move on to the next stage. Before applying decals, as always, I coat the tank with glossy varnish. This way the decals will stick to the surface better. I use Mark Saturn Neo model chemistry to install the decals, and then Mark Softer Neo for better welding. I apply decals to the feed tubes, to the front track protection flaps, and to the rocket launcher. There doesn't seem to be much work, the main thing is to be careful and take your time. If the decals are shiny, and they are, believe me, you can use modeling chemicals to matte the surface, and then cover the model with matte varnish. We continue to add details to the model. Let's deal with the weathering of exhaust pipes. This tank is experimental and has not been in serious use, so its exhaust pipes have had no time to rust too much. By the way, for the same reason the tank will not have too many chips. First we apply a dark grey color, simulating fading and burning of the paint on the exhaust pipe. Then we add carbon deposits using a light grey paint, on top of which we apply white paint. When the base is ready, we begin to add rust and soot. Using brown paint that imitates all deep rust, we go along the edges of the pipes. Then, using black paint and an airbrush, we apply soot and ashes. The final touches will be added at the very end. Optical elements on the tank are represented by triplexes of the command cupola and headlights. I want to imitate the effect of a lens, so I will try to create a contrast of light and shadow. As a basic color for the optics, I chose blue cyan paint, which I mixed with black or white in different proportions depending on the need. The general principle of painting is that the upper parts of the lenses should be darker, while the lower parts on the contrary should be lighter. To finalize the creation of the shine effect on triplexes and headlights, I use crystal periscope green and crystal light blue paint varnishes. Now it is time for enamel washes. Before working with aggressive chemicals, the tank must be protected with varnish. I took the dark brown wash for green vehicles model chemistry, which is great for green camouflages. Using a brush, I highlight the elements of the body and removable parts, creating volume and shadow on the model. The fluidity of enamel wash is at high level, and if it is necessary to correct errors, this can be easily done with a brush dipped in thinner. After the washes have dried, the model can be varnished again to protect our work. On our tank there are a lot of glow places, energy coils, feeding tubes and other support elements of the main gun. I paint the base of the coils yellow, on top of which I apply various shades of red and orange, and the center of the fitted coil will be light, almost white. To simulate the glow on the feeding tubes, I use model chemistry with a flare effect. This is a very fluid liquid, just what we need for filling cavities in tubes and other elements. On chrome surfaces I did not use an undercoat paints, since the brightness of the chrome is enough to simulate the glow effect. And for the remaining elements I used white paint before applying a bright yellow fluor. Yes, this is not green color, oddly enough. Let us paint main gun. I decided to make it shiny black, contrastingly brutal and mysterious. How to do it? Using black chrome paint, for example. First we apply glossy black paint as a primer, and after it dries we apply a thin layer of black chrome. The result is a dark mirror surface, just what I wanted. Next we create a glow effect on the main weapon. The basis is white paint, on top of which I apply the same chemistry with fluor effect. Next, using a matte brush, we create a glow effect around the recesses of the gun barrel. In this case, accuracy is important, since a chrome coating is very sensitive to any paint or chemicals and instantly fades. Now we can start creating wear and tear on our tank. First, as usual, I make chips with a transition from light scratch to dark deep rust. Our tank, as I already said, was not heavily used, so too many chips are not required. The main wear occurs on the undercarriage, dozer blade and different hatches and covers. Using a sponge, we create the effect of worn and chipped paint, which is formed from natural wear or damage. Then, using a brush, I combine red and chipped points into a single grid, which imitates scratches. On top of the light chips, I apply dark brown paint, which imitates the effect of rust resulting from the paint chipping down to the metal. As usual, the main thing in applying chips is not to overdo it and stop in time to only emphasize the shape of the model and not to overload its appearance. The last stage of painting the model is application of various technical stains, rust and of course dirt. To add dirt to the chassis I use dry pigments of various colors, which I mix together with acrylic thinner into a liquid paste. Next, using a brush, I generously apply this mixture to the surface of the tracks and chassis parts. When the mixture dries, its excess can be easily removed using a regular brush, a cotton swab, or a sponge soaked in plain water or thinner. Even a lightly used tank will have at least small drips of rust, fuel and oil, so I took a brush and created such drips around the engine and other technical hatches. Just a few touches and our tank hunter is ready to stalk its prey. If you liked the video and want to see more models like this, feel free to comment, like and share it, and also subscribe to the channel. Good luck with your models and see you soon!